All right, everybody. Dan Rother, top student athlete recruiting here to share a pretty important topic. College recruiting, all sports is changing tremendously. It has the last few years. You got to be nimble in this process and everything, but there's some big changes coming to soccer. College coaches, they really don't know how it looks quite yet, but there are going to be a lot of challenges and things of that nature. So there's not enough folks out there talking about it. Club coaches, high school coaches, people in the know. So I want to make sure people are in the know. I am recording this. I'll send it out afterwards. You can share it with anybody you want. This is a webinar format. So if questions come up, um, feel free to type them in the question and answer at the bottom or the chat, and we'll get to them at the end. Hopefully, along the process, I'll be able to answer a lot of those questions. But I'm trying to tell this story because not enough people know about it, and a lot of kids I talk to, oh, I want to play Division One. That's great, and I think a lot of kids can and still can. But I want to make sure that they understand the challenges that are ahead of them. So, when there are, hiccups and there are coaches that aren't interested or you're not hearing anything, we'll make sure that we are covering those things and you know why some things are happening. And I think that's important. So, the chat, I understand the chat is disabled. Just put your stuff in the question and answer. That'll work for me. So thanks for letting me know about that. Um, so we'll get started. I'm going to share my screen, and I am joined today by my friend and colleague, Ian Clarahue. Ian, are you there?
I'm here. Dan, how are you?
Great, I'm great. It's beautiful, 95 degrees in Dubuque, Iowa right now. So where I'm located. So we're enjoying some air conditioning. So Ian was a longtime college soccer coach. Coached at all divisions, mostly Division One and Division Three, and coached at places like Yale, Villanova, Duke, St. John's, Akron, Northern Illinois, Linfield, and then St. Thomas, Texas, which is Division Three, which was his last stop. He won a national championship at Division Two. He's got a ton of experience and gives us a lot of understanding of how this process works. Myself, I was a college coach for 24 some years, had some great success as a coach, went to a lot of Final Fours and national championships and competed at the highest level. I've been doing this for about 5 years, coming up on that, helping kids and college coaches connect, helping them find right fit opportunities so that you find a great place to get an education, a great place to play soccer, where you can maximize your potential on and off the field. Um, so there's been a big court settlement. It's called House versus the NCAA. House was a swimmer from Arizona State, and he sued the NCAA over profit sharing, saying the NCAA is getting all this money from TV and ticket sales and this type of thing, and the student athletes aren't getting anything. So what has happened is um, the NCAA had to settle the court case, and they've decided to profit share with their student athletes. That's a total change in. It's basically now it's going to be pay to play to some extent, right? Athletes are going to get paid something. We're not quite sure what yet, but they're going to get on top of scholarships potentially, on top of all the advantages they get to go to college and play sports. They also would get some profit sharing from TV deals and ticket sales and other things like that. Well, the drivers in this arena is football and basketball, right? They bring in the most money, they bring in the TV deals, things like that. But it's changed everything. And so I'm just showing you some scholarship limits in men's sports. We're going to talk about women's too, and it's very similar. So, but this graphic right here. what it used to be in football. It used to be 85. Even this year, there's 85 scholarships in football on a football team. Teams can have, though, as many players as they want, and they carry a lot of times 30 to 50 walk-ons that are paying the bill to go to school there, but they get to be on the team and they might develop into something and they may eventually earn a scholarship. Next year, starting next year, they can have 105 scholarships, but they can also only have 105 players on their team. All right, so they're limiting. There's no more real, walk-ons potentially in football if they want to do it. But the other thing with it too is in football, it used to be 85 full rides. Those people were getting everything paid for. Now they can give 105 scholarships. They could divide that up. They don't have to give everybody a full scholarship, but they still have a roster limit of 105. So how does that affect soccer? Soccer had 9.9 scholarships for teams, roster sizes were somewhere between 28 and 35 typically, sometimes more, sometimes less. Now they're saying soccer can have 28 scholarships. It's massive difference, 18 more scholarships. What does that do? It also means they can have only 28 players on a roster. We're going to talk about roster limits and size and things like that. But that's a big deal because I know a lot of teams carried a lot more than 28 on men's and women's soccer over the, you know, forever. And so coaches are having to change how they recruit, things like that. Now, I'm going to tell you, if you look at these numbers, there's plus 20 football scholarships allowed, plus 35 lacrosse, plus 32 track, and goes on and on. If you just look on the men's side, there's 280 potential new scholarships. Colleges aren't going to be able to afford that. Plus, they have to pay profit sharing um, to the college athletes now. So, in addition to potentially giving more scholarships, they have to give money to student athletes. There's just no way. If you look at an average scholarship is, somewhere between 25 and 40,000. It's just, it's tens of millions of dollars per institution if they gave all these scholarships. So I just don't see it happening. The coaches I talk to don't see it happening, but I'm going to break it down a lot further in regards to soccer and how that looks. Like football and basketball are going to get the additional scholarships. There's no doubt in my mind that's going to happen. Women's sports might see a slight benefit, a bump in scholarship, especially at the Power Four schools with big time football that have big time money coming in. Like I said, we're not going to see schools give 25 to 70,000, 250 more scholarships. It's just not going to happen. You know, because they have to pay for everything else, and they have to pay for the profit sharing now too, and they have to pay the student athletes. So I think, and we'll talk about it in a little bit, I think scholarships, we might see a reduction. We might see less scholarships in men's and women's soccer and a lot of other sports. I also think baseball and softball are going to become more prominent. We see a lot of them. They have some TV rights. They're on ESPN, a lot more, and things, are going to give them some scholarship opportunities first. So in soccer, currently NCAA rosters currently range from 29 to 35, but I see them as high as, 40 and 50 at Division One. I see it at Division Two and Division Three, but I'm going to talk about Division One here for a little bit, and then I'm going to talk about how it affects everybody else. Coaches really don't know how this looks, and right now they're hesitant to recruit. They're hesitant to call a student athlete at Division One and encourage them to visit and potentially go down the road with them because they don't know how many scholarships their school is going to offer. Are they going to offer less? Are they going to offer more? I'll break it down in a moment. But next year, it's going to 28 roster spots. You can give 28 full rides if you can afford it. Again, only the Power Four, Big Ten, SEC, ACC, Big 12 will be able to afford that. And most of those conferences don't even have men's soccer, they have women's. Each institution or conference will decide how many scholarships they can afford. There is right now, currently, there's a Division One men's soccer team that only gives one athletic scholarship for the whole team. So if you can imagine, if this is going to cut scholarships, it's going to get interesting. Will we see a new division formed? Will there be a Division One AA? Will there be a Division Four formed? I'm not sure yet. And that's what coaches don't quite know yet, and so they're not ready to go down the road with 2025s, 2026s. Um, we may see schools drop men's soccer, maybe even women's soccer if they can't, so they can max out the money they spend on football and basketball. It'd be sad. We might see soccer become more of a USL model, like a minor league professional model in colleges. Brigham Young does this. New Mexico State does this. We might see something like that, where it's not an NCAA sport anymore, but they still have this team. You can play on the team. It's more professional. I don't know. Coaches don't know, but I know this: there's going to be less opportunities at Division One. This will cause a trickle down effect at all levels, right? If there's less opportunities at Division One, you're going to see those players have to go somewhere. They're going to go to Division Two. Those players at Division Two are going to get bumped down, and they're going to play at Division Three, and so on, right? So there are going to be challenges up and down the ladder. And Ian, feel free to jump in if you hear anything or see anything, want to talk about anything. But this is a current and future soccer roster sizes and scholarships graph I made. All right, so men on the top, women on the bottom. Currently, 203 men's Division One programs. They have an average roster size of 32. Current scholarship limit. That's if a school fully funded, they can give 9.9. That means the school decides they can give how much they can give. If they're giving 9.9 scholarships out, now they might be able to add it with academic money and give you a full ride if they give you a partial scholarship. So a coach could say, okay, I want to give this person, you know, a 50% scholarship in soccer. Well, if they can get 30 or 40% in academics, they're getting a pretty darn good deal on college. But that's currently how it works. Starting next year, again, they're moving the scholarship limit up to 28 if a school can afford it. I don't know anybody that will afford it for men's soccer. And I doubt it on the women's soccer side from what I'm hearing from people that I know at Division One and things like that. But it could happen at a few schools. I just don't know if the playing field is not going to be very level if one school in Division One is giving 28 and one school is giving one. It's just not going to be the same. They're not going to be on the same planet in terms of ability level, right? But then the roster limit's 28. So four less players on each Division One roster. Four less players at 203 schools is 812 less players playing Division One next year and in the future. Going to be harder to play on a Division One roster. Now, Division Two and Division Three don't change. There's 200 schools playing Division Two. They can have as many players on the roster as they want. They have 9 scholarships. They'll have 9 scholarships next year. Division Three has 413. They can have as big a roster as you want, and they don't have scholarships. NAIA is National Association of Intercollegiate Athletics, just another governing body that has college soccer. 202 teams playing. They have average roster size of 30, and they can give up to 12 scholarships, and that will continue. And junior colleges have a lot of scholarships, 24. So there's a lot of options on the men's side. Women's side is a little bit different. The biggest thing is there's more teams playing Division One in the women's right now, and Division Two. 337 teams, Division One. That's a Title IX thing, right? You have to have as many opportunities at your school for men as you have for women as you have for men. So if you have 85 scholarships for football, you got to make it up somewhere else. So they give out more scholarships for soccer. I briefly want to touch on that. If they're going to add 20 football scholarships, which most schools I think will, because they want to be competitive, well, guess what? They have to up their women's scholarships. So we're going to see, women's soccer probably get a little bit of a bump because they have to Title IX. We have to offer the same amount of opportunities and scholarships as men. So that's where I think men's soccer might be in a little bit of trouble and may offer less. Um, but again,
Dan,
28. Go ahead, Ian.
sorry, Dan, if I could just add something. So one of the things that's always been important, of course, is your academics. And now I think that's just doubled. I think what you can do to put yourself in better positions to get on rosters outside of obviously your ability as a soccer player is your academics. So I think that will be the great separator ultimately of getting on some rosters at different levels. So I can't impress upon um, student athletes to take that more seriously than I can. I would just say that is has to be a major focus.
Right, Ian. We're going to talk about that too, and I do think one thing that I'm hearing from Division 1 coaches, and it trickles down to everybody, but I'm hearing, they might not have as many scholarships, and if they do, whatever scholarship money they will get, they're going to have to give to the best players, right? The kids are going to be helping win a championship, help the coach keep their job, and they might have a great number of players, 10, 12 players on their roster that get no athletic scholarship money, but if they can get academic money, they're going to want that kid, right? Or they can get, that kid can pay the full bill. They're going to want that kid maybe more than somebody else
Yeah,
to help them. Gets interesting. But that's a great point. On the women's, it's a little bit different. Like I said, 14 scholarships currently. I think that might bump up. And then Division 2, Division 3, NAI, it all remains the same. So I watch college soccer on a daily basis. ESPN Plus is a great avenue to do that. I watched these games this week. I was counting benches, all right, because of this rule, and I wanted to see, Division 1 benches. This team had 34 players on the roster, and then I looked up their roster. All right, it's Gonzaga on the men's side. Then I watched this game, Northern Colorado. Look at that bench on the women's side. They have 41 players on their roster. They got to cut down to 28. All right, so we'll talk about that. So these are real emails that I have seen from kids I work with or coaches directly that have been copied on and things like that. I took out the names just so you knew that, but just read the highlighted areas, right? Coaches are taking a pause on their recruiting for 25 and 26. It doesn't mean you stop reaching out to coaches. It doesn't mean you take a pause. They are still following players. They're still determining who's on their war board and a player they might be interested in, but they might not be reaching out because they don't know what it looks like. All right. I wanted to let you know that 2026 is far away from us starting to recruit. There's new rules on recruiting roster sizes coming for 2025. We need to wait and see what it does before we start looking into further classes. All right, and then that's real, right? That's just a couple weeks ago. Here's another one from maybe a week or two ago. With the new NCAA roster cap, we are slowing down our recruiting of the class of 25 until we figure how this will affect us overall. But we are trying to narrow players down so that we can make final decisions later on in the year. Even goes on to say, keep sending me your updates, your videos, your schedule, and things like that. So they want to continue to watch. They're going to continue to watch. They need the best players they can get. Um, Coaches get paid to win, and I haven't mentioned that, but they're going to get the best players they possibly can get to win. So right now they don't know how that quite looks, so they're taking a little bit of a pause in it. Don't feel bad if you're not getting responses, but it's still time to reach out. I'm just here to tell you it's going to be a little harder. The new NCAA rule for men on Division 1 limits substitutions and playing time even more. I think we're going to have more frustrated student athletes. You know, I said right here, even if you are in a Division 1 team, doesn't mean you will get in a game. Usually 15 to 18 players get in a game, and that might be less going forward. The new rule basically means in the past all divisions were the same, men's and women's, and you play once in the first half, and then you could play twice in the second half. You could re-enter. You could come out, take a 5-minute breather in the second half, and go back in. Now you can't do that. Now you only have uh, play once in the first half. You can play once in the second half. All right, so that's changed. So less subbing, and then they can only sub 6 times during the game total. Like they can send two or three people at that each time, but it's going to limit them on how many players are getting in the game. That's at Division 1 only, but I tell you this because I think, maybe last year 17 or so kids played a game. Maybe it's going to be on average down to 15 or 16 this year, and you're just going to see a few more frustrated players. So let's do a sample here, right? Clemson men's soccer, they're national champs last year. Current roster size 2024, 34 student athletes. All right. They'll need to have six less players on their 2025 roster. So they're either going to need to cut players or recruit less. Um, you know, that's six less student athletes on the Clemson roster, the best roster in the country, means six great players for a program somewhere else. Probably somewhere else in Division 1, but maybe not Clemson, right? Maybe a step lower. This will trickle down to all levels. You'll see, the top players. If six people aren't able to go to Clemson, they're going to land somewhere else. If they land somewhere else, in Division 1, it's going to kind of keep bumping the level a little bit down. Doesn't mean the level is going to be. It's actually going to bring the all level up, right? Like Division 2 is going to get better, Division 3 is going to get better, lower level Division 1 is going to get better, but you're going to see that take place. Um, so the trickle down effect is real. NCAA 1 will be recruiting less, right? And this is just reiterating what I just told you from Division 1 coaches. Um, Nobody, or at least nearly nobody, is getting the 28 scholarships beginning in 2025. Some Power Four will increase above the current 14, but not close to the 28 allowed. Some will stay at the same of 14. This is for women's, and others will lose some scholarships. All the while, very few Power Four schools even know officially what scholarship number they will be supported at their institution for the moment. Schools need to save money right now for the pending revenue sharing that wasn't in anyone's budget projections. Additional scholarships will ultimately count against the revenue sharing up to a certain number, making for less available funds to be dispersed directly to student athletes. That's from a Big Ten coach. All right. Um, most players, and then this is another one. Most programs have to cut players because they're going to be over the 28 cap when 2025 comes. That's a big thing. If they had 35 plus, they have to reduce to 28. That a lot of tough decisions. All right, there's no grandfathering in. Coaches are going to have to do it right away, and so they may have to cut players from their own team that were currently on there. And coaches had plans for the future. They thought, hey, I'm graduating 7 people next year. I bring 7 in. That's not the case right now. Um, so that's a big balancing act, and Title IX will be a part of it, and we'll have to see what happens. But that's another piece. These are some direct messages, some real direct messages. Mostly on the women's side currently because women seem to commit earlier, but there's a lot of people being asked to decommit or having to decommit from Division 1 programs, right? Um, you know, I'll just read this red one. After unforeseeable events regarding the roster cap, I will not be continuing my academic and athletic career at Penn State. I want to thank the staff for the opportunity. I look forward to future endeavors. This one was interesting, real quick. My daughter received her decommitment call from a Division 1 Power Four school. They're obviously frustrated. We already know of one school looking to decommit another player to try to take her. Unreal, right? So those types of things are happening. It's not if you have committed, and I know there's some people on here that have committed. Just keep staying in touch with your coaches, making sure you don't just committed and you're not going to talk to them for a long time. Stay toe the road. I think most places haven't committed all their players, so they're still probably good. But maybe at the Power Five level might be the biggest challenge. But where will these players go? Like I said, some prospects that were Power Four will end up going lower level Division 1. It'll trickle down. It'll bump good players to D3, NAI, or junior college. But level of play is going to rise at all levels. Even at these levels, they're going to see a lot of things. Don't let the boat sink, right? It's going to be there. So can college what's the impact? Can college athletic departments afford more scholarships? We'll see. Some NCAA colleges may reclassify. Some Division I schools may become Division II. I can see that happen, or Division III. Some may offer more scholarship, but most is going to be less. Conferences and colleges might align on a plan. Like they might say, okay, our conference is only going to allow 5 scholarships. Our conferences are only going to allow 15 scholarships. Do you still want to be in our conference? I said some colleges may drop soccer. I'm especially worried about men's soccer. Um, I'm not saying that many, but I think it will. You'll see some. All right, and then can they afford the scholarships to remain competitive? And some of these schools have huge rosters to fuel enrollment. If they have 41 players on the team, paying $40,000 each, the school's making more money, right? So, well, how are they going to deal with that? So we're going to see smaller rosters at Division I. One of the things coaches used to bring in, they might have 41 players on a roster or 35 players on a roster. Part of the reason was they could develop players, right? They might take a risk on a kid. Hey, you can be on our team. You can be the 33rd player. You're a walk on, so called. You're not getting scholarship money, but we think you have the ability to improve and become a good player, potentially. So we want to take a risk on you. That really can't happen anymore with these smaller rosters. They need 28 players that can play because coaches need to win. They need to win now or they lose their jobs. A lot of them, right? Um, Coaches will have more reliance on the transfer portal. I've talked about the transfer portal a lot, but they're seeking proven college players. You're going to see a lot of players that might go Division III and Division II to start, or junior college to start, and then the coaches recruit them a year or two later when they get a year or two older, stronger, faster, better. That stuff, better at speed of play, those types of things. That's happening now. It's going to get even become a bigger thing because again, you're going to have a lot of really good players that land at Division II, Division III, NAIA, junior college. Um, More players will be asked to leave the team if they aren't contributing. If you're clogging up rosters at lower levels, right? You're going to see coaches if they, you know, recruiting is hard as a college coach. You're taking a gamble, and that kid might not turn out to be a player. And if he's taking one of you or she's taking one of your 28 roster spots, and they're not producing, and they're a junior, you might ask them to leave so that you can open up a roster spot for somebody who can do that. Um, you'll see more prospects going to lower levels for a year or two in hopes of leveling up. What we call leveling up in the industry is, they're gonna jump a level after a year or two of playing at a lower level. Um, that's definitely going to happen. Um, if you're lucky enough to get a roster spot with the limited money and needing to win, you might not get any money at all. Like I said before, I know that a lot of college coaches, they might, if they get 15 scholarships and they need to win, they might throw all 15 into, you know, transfers that were, studs at their level or lower level teams, guys that can help them win right away. Put all 15 scholarships into those players, and then bring in another 13 players that are no scholarship at all, just academic money. And they'll fill out the roster, but they're going to rely heavily on the money side of those players. So they're going to see a little bigger divide, I think, between the haves and have-nots on the roster. Um, we'll see 4 to 5 thousand in the transfer portal after the season. It's been about 3 to 4 thousand. I think we're going to see even more. Coaches look to transfers and international options first, especially on the men's side. I think the international option is going to become bigger and bigger as the international game has gotten better. But also, I think the transfer portal is just as wild on both sides. That's 4 to 5 thousand men. And there's 45,000 women in the transfer portal. Um, I think you're going to see offers come later. Everyone's really anxious to get an offer and go down the road with a program. I think we're going to see, and I started seeing it last year with a lot of the kids I worked with, and that was even before this happened. But a lot of my players that landed at Division I did so after the transfer portal went. Oh, there's a musical chairs that happens in the transfer portal. 3 players leave one team, They go to another team and fill that roster. Well, it leaves three openings. Who can fill those openings? Does that coach go to the transfer portal and fill them with transfers, or they bring in new freshmen? Well, maybe they bring in one transfer and two freshmen, and that freshman they weren't recruiting him yet. They had him on their radar, and they were following him, and they didn't have an opening for him, and now they might have an opening for him. We're talking in January or February of your senior year, and the coach couldn't go down the road with you until that point because his roster was full. Their roster was full. Um, we'll see Division 2, Division 3, NAI continue recruiting. And if you have hopes of Division 1, even if you have hopes of Division 1, still go down the road with these options. You don't never know what can happen, and there's always leveling up. There's always maybe a school comes in late. Division 3, Division 2 coaches jump to Division 1 and take players with them. I mean, just you got to go where you're wanted. That's a big thing, and listen to everybody that gives you a call because it's going to be harder, and you want options in the end. Gap year programs are becoming more popular every year. I've had a couple players go on gap year programs. These are two that I really endorse. I don't endorse all of them because I think some of them are a bit maybe not as professional as I'd like, but e-tours in Spain, you go for a year, you train, you work with professional sides, you learn Spanish, and you get better at playing with really good competition. Pre-college DA, another one here domestically. They have a program in Nashville and Denver, and you go there and you train at a really high level um, several times a day, and you get better and you're a bigger, faster, stronger. So the next year, maybe you can go to a higher level and you don't burn your season of eligibility. They're getting more popular. They're just starting to come around on the women's side as well, but there are options that way. So what can you do, right? How do you manage this? Well, first off, you got to cast a wide net. All divisions, all levels. Keep getting on radars. Coaches are still watching, right? They're like I said, they're still paying attention. They're not watching players and evaluating players. They may not be reaching out to players. So you might email a coach and you get silence. Keep emailing. They don't know what it looks like yet. Keep reaching out, see what happens down the road. But you need to stay on their radars. Keep getting them new video. Keep telling them your schedule, all those different things. Target colleges that are good fits athletically, academically, financially, socially. My next webinar, we're going to talk about how to target schools that are good fits for you. And everyone's got different priorities, and how does that play out? Listen to every coach that shows interest. You never know. You never know how that's going to play out for you, or they might know somebody, or they get a new job, or those types of things. Consider all your options, including gap year programs and possibly leveling up. If you don't know the level of play that is right for you, ask a neutral party, ask a local college coach that they will be willing to assess your level of play. Then you won't waste your time targeting the wrong level. I think it's hard for you to evaluate your level of play. It's hard for your coaches to evaluate your level of play. They might know, but coaches don't want to tell you if you're not good enough. They're not going to say, "Oh yeah, you can't go Division 1," because then guess what? You're going to be mad at them. Or you're going to be like, "Oh, the coach doesn't like me," and those types of things. They want you to like them. It's really hard for them to do. I think if you really want it, pay a local college coach to come out and watch you play that knows something. And hey, you come out and watch me play, and really tell me what level of play, man. I bet some assistant coach somewhere would do that for you. Um, Go see college games and really assess if you can see yourself on the field in that game. All right, really assess it. I watch the games now, and there's no way when I was playing college soccer 30 some years ago that I could get on the field now. There's just no way these athletes move. Have good video, have good highlights, and a good full game video. Um, don't chase ID camps, just hoping and praying you're going to get on a roster. If you're having a real conversation with a coach, I think going to ID camps can make a difference. But until that point, I wouldn't go just to say, hey, you send an email. A lot of times you just get a random email back that says, oh, thanks for the email. We'd love to see you at our ID camp. I don't think that's a real conversation. But if the coach is calling you, spending real time with you, that might be then they become a little more of an option. But I'll talk about those in a future webinar. And avoid the D1 or bust mentality. There's a lot of great soccer out there. Coach Claire, who and I both coached it. you know, really good Division III teams for a long time as well. And we'll tell you, some of our teams could beat a lot of Division I teams, and did. But don't get discouraged if you're 20, 25 and aren't getting D1 interest, yet you're hoping to. This is making it harder, which certainly is, but keep trying for it. But also have other options, have safety options, have stretch options. Um, Again, coaches don't know how this looks yet, but there's going to be a little bit of pause and silence in recruiting, especially for Division I programs the next few months. Um, you know, NCAA with Division I coaches are still evaluating prospects. Like I said, although they might be not telling you they are, transfer portal is going to be bigger than ever. Have an open mind. There's a lot of great soccer out there. Um, and if you have a school that's a great fit for you, don't wait too long. If a coach wants you, they've told you they want you to commit. You know it's a great fit, but you're really hoping and praying for maybe a Division I offer. I don't know that I'd sit on it because guess what? Even Division II and Division III and JUCO and NAI offers are going to get harder to get. There are a couple positives. I don't want to be the negative guy here all night. The COVID extra year of eligibility is ending. So we've had for the last 4 years, we've had kids get an extra year of eligibility, and they've kind of clogged up rosters. That is ending after this year, so we're not going to have as many, fifth year seniors out there, and then it may open up a few roster spots. But it's still going to make it still going to be hard. So how does top student athlete recruiting help? Um, we directly connect college coaches and prospects to right fit opportunities. Um, Call coaches, tell them about kids we're working with, and why they should recruit them and get you in front of them. Maximize exposure, get you in front of more and more coaches, and help you find right fits that are good for you based on our knowledge. Save time, energy, and money on knowing what to do, what is worth it in the process, what is not, because there's a lot of things out there you could spin your wheels and chase your tail doing. Save money on college by knowing how the process works, guide, game plan the process from start to finish, and reduce stress of the process with the ultimate goal of having a lot of options on the table so that you can really decide what the best fit is for you. That being said, Coach Clary, you got anything you want to add there? And then I'll
I
over to
would just, yeah, real quick, I would just say that seeing where the landscape is headed, I think working with a professional in this industry and having someone that understands exactly how the process works in recruiting and timelines and financial aid and admissions. I just think it will continue to become more and more important. So, um, yeah, just do your research, watch college games. I guess what Coach Rothert said about watching college games, that is a really big deal. So you can really see what it's like. If you can watch them in person, obviously that's big. They're live streamed at every level, and of course, I think ESPN3 or ESPN Plus has a lot of games. So I just think put the work in, and it does pay off.
Yeah, no, for sure. Thanks, Ian. I would agree. I'm going to be honest. People would say, "Hey, it's a recruiting service." We've heard not to do that. We don't trust that. Those types of things. There are some that I don't like. I'll be honest. There's some that are more just put your stuff on a web platform and hope you get found. I don't like those, but if there is a reputable person, I'm not the only one out there. But I know that there are some that are better than others. So do your research on that. If you do want to talk more, you have individual questions, you can always reach out to me. If you want to set up a time to talk and me evaluate where you're at and give you some ideas, I'll do it. There's no problem with that. You can email me or text me. That is certainly something you can do. And then I'll stick around here for a few minutes and answer some questions. But we will do another one targeting the right fit colleges athletically and financially on Sunday, September 15th. Um, I think I got a senior in my house, trying to figure out where he's going to go. That's a great fit academically, athletically, and financially. Something that we're dealing with. So it's been fun. Um, so I'll answer some questions that I'm seeing here. if you played varsity high school soccer, what are some same opportunities for the player? I mean, yeah, I think you can get anywhere from any, I have players that I've worked with that just play high school soccer and they go to really high level college soccer programs. You can, there's some that play club year round, things like that, with some multiple sport athletes that play many things. They just do high school. There's definitely opportunities out there for everybody. Where do you find the rankings of conferences? Um, Not sure about that question, but I think definitely you can find that. You can find like how they rank in soccer. You do just a Google search. Is the situation less dire for goalkeepers? I think it's probably more dire for goalkeepers, if I'm being totally honest. Would you agree with that, Ian?
I would, yes.
I mean, there's only three players on a team that play that position, and one, there's a lot of transfer portal players that are goalkeepers because they're frustrated. They're the third keeper on a team and things like that. I think girl or goalkeeper situation becomes even a little bit more challenging because you can't play other positions. At least if I go to college and I'm a forward, I could play something else probably on a given day if I needed to. Whereas goalkeepers are pretty select. Um, what happens to those schools that elect not to participate in profit sharing agreement? Then they're going to have to not be Division 1 anymore. Is what's going to happen. So I think, or that's going to be really interesting, right? So if they just elect not to do it, then they're going to probably have to go to Division 2 or Division 3. But it's retroactive too, from what I understand. So even past players from the past 5 years are still getting this retroactive payment, so they're on the hook for something. They can't just bail out on it. So it's going to get interesting. One of the key parts to a highlight video is showing what you do well for you and what in accordance to what that position should be doing well, right? You should be showing everything that your position would do at a high level. You should be able to do those things. For instance, right, center back, you got to be able to distribute. Yes, you got to be able to win the 1v1 duel. You got to be able to win the air. I see center back videos where the center back doesn't win a ball in the air the whole 2 to 3 minutes. I don't know if that's good enough because you have to show everything your position would do well um, in that in that situation, right? So, anything else with that, Ian?
I think especially, per the level, right? Like I think the college game is certainly different than the youth game, and so I think sometimes the youth game, um, there aren't as many opportunities for the ball maybe to be in the air at times, and so hopefully, if you're in a situation where you're not having as many clips at the center back, using that as the example, that maybe you can do some one-on-one extra stuff because a college coach is definitely going to want to see that from you in that position.
Yeah, no, I would agree, and maybe it's a situation too where hey, your club's really good, and to keep the ball on the ground, and both teams do a good job of that, and but maybe your high school team the ball's in the air a little bit more. Maybe you need to pull in some high school clips, right? I don't know. Like you got to find a way to get some of that stuff if you can. So find a way, whether it's individual stuff. Here's a great question: how can you tell if you're on a school's radar? I'm getting email replies. Is that enough? I would say it gets real when it gets to texting. I'm gonna be blunt with you because that's the kind of guy I am. But I also think ask questions back. Have back and forth, right? Ask for a phone call. Keep asking for a phone call. Hey, coach, I'm really interested. I appreciate the email response. Can we jump on a call here soon? Um, Let me know your schedule. I'd love to schedule a time to learn about your program and tell you a little bit more about me as a soccer player. If they're going to spend a half hour with you on the phone, maybe an hour, there's interest. Wouldn't you say that's right, coach?
For sure. I think there's not really a time limit. I mean, yes, a 1 minute call might be a little brief, to show interest, but I think it's what you're talking about in that call, right? So have a list of items that you're prepared to speak to whatever coach you're going to be talking to. So be informed, um, be prepared. I think those things are really important.
Yeah, I always think, you get a camp email. Hey, coach, they want you to come to their ID camp. Um, you know, and they say, hey, thanks for the email. Like what we saw in your video. We'd love you to attend our ID camp. Well, guess what? That ID camp might cost a couple $100s. You might have to go stay in a hotel. Heck, you might even have to fly there, right? This could be a couple hundred to a couple $1,000s to go to the ID camp. I always try to tell kids, hey, make sure let's have a conversation with that coach. All right. Tell the coach, hey coach, I really want to come to your ID camp. I'm super interested in your school. I'm super excited you told me about this. I'd love to jump on a call to learn a little bit more before I come to the camp because it's a huge commitment for my family to come to your camp. Um, and then if you get a response that says, yeah, let's talk next week on Thursday at 2 o'clock, game on, right? If you get crickets, I don't think I'd go to that camp. That's just me. Um, that's just some of the advice I give and try to help the people I work with get. Does getting a testimonial from your current coach, high school or club, help with the recruiting process? Coach Claire, who you coach some club right now, what do you think about that?
I think it can. I think it's helpful if that's a personal relationship. If there's prior knowledge of each other, so I certainly think it can. If the two people don't necessarily know each other that well, I still think it can be helpful, but it's not, of course, as helpful as knowing someone personally.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, the personal connection is big. Like the only thing about that, it can help. It definitely helps about character, I would say, right? Telling about a kid's character that they're, those types of things. But I also think, the college coaches don't know your coaches typically. So if they don't know them, they might not trust them in the understanding level of play. And do you really understand it? Or does your coach really understand what they're talking about in that regards? But it still has value. It still has a little bit of value, especially about character and you as a person and things like that. What things should we talk to coaches about on the phone call? Well, prepare some questions. Coaches don't know you have a notebook in front of you. Have some questions ready, right? Um, so when you go into it, you're not, stumbling over yourself and don't have anything to talk about. And when they say, do you have any questions? Have a question. Have two questions, three questions. Don't just say, nah, I got nothing. Like they coaches want to recruit kids they like. Coaches want to recruit kids they have a relationship with. So develop a relationship by asking some questions. Heck, ask them about, hey, where'd you go to college? Well, tell me about your college experience. Tell me why you've gotten to coaching. Like things like that are different than the other kid than the most kids are like, tell me about your roster spots. Tell me about, what's your depth chart at center back. Ask some questions that have meaning and you're gonna move up the ladder a little bit. And then think about questions they might ask you. They're always gonna ask you what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses. Have answers and think about those before you jump on a call because that's only gonna help you be liked by a coach, right? So um, well, hopefully that was informative to you all. If there are other questions, you can email me directly, either myself or I'll get Coach Claire Hugh to reach out as well if needed. And then or you can send me a text. Um, we'll do another one September 15th. I'm going to do a bunch more this fall, just open information, try to get more information, help people out, find great fit opportunities to play college soccer. I know it seemed a little negative tonight at some points. All right, but I just want to tell the truth because a lot of people, don't know what's going on and they need to know that stuff. So thank you and have a great night. Thanks, Ian.
Good night, guys. Thank you.